Creating Accessible Word Documents, Chapter 2, Appropriate Uses of Color. This training video is produced by the Accessibility and Policy Unit of the California Department of Social Services. The bases for these criteria are WCAG 1.4.3, Contrast Minimum, which states the visual presentation of text and images of text has a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1 or 3.0 to 1 for large text. And WCAG 1.4.1, Use of Color, which states color is not used as the only visual means of conveying information, indicating an action, prompting a response, or distinguishing a visual element. Contrast. Contrast refers to the color of the text versus the color of the background upon which it sits. It must meet minimum contrast ratios to satisfy accessibility requirements. These ratios can be measured using the Color Contrast Analyzer, or CCA. According to the WCAG, the minimum contrast ratio for normal text is 4.5 to 1, AA standards, and the minimum contrast ratio for large text is 3.0 to 1. Large text is defined as 14-point bolded text and larger, or 18-point non-bolded text and larger. Color can be a very effective tool in document creation. It is just important to ensure minimum contrast requirements are met. Let's use the Color Contrast Analyzer to analyze the contrast ratios of some sample text. To analyze text, select the dropper under Foreground Color. You will then see a large circle with a small square in the middle. The small square needs to be on the darkest part of the text. You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard to move 1 pixel at a time. Once you have the darkest or brightest pixel selected, simply click or press Enter on your keyboard. Then use the background color dropper to select the color of the background. In this case, we are analyzing black text on a white background. This has the highest contrast ratio possible of 21 to 1. Now let's analyze some different colors. The first text we will analyze is red text on a white background. We will use the dropper under Foreground Color and get the small square on the brightest pixel and click. We don't need to change the white background color since the background text is still white. You will see here that it does fail minimum contrast for AA, regular size text, but does pass for large text. We look here, it is Arial size 12 and therefore does not pass. In order to ensure that this text passes, we need to darken it up and test again. We darkened it up and we can test that pixel there. Again, we want to use those arrow keys on our keyboard to move 1 pixel at a time. And you will see that it passes for normal and large text at AA standards. This preview should look like what you are testing. Now let's test this green text on a darker green background. Use the dropper to get that brightest pixel and use the background dropper to get that dark green. Here we see that it fails for regular text and passes for large text. If we look here, it is Arial 14 bolded, which does qualify as large text, so we can go ahead and leave this sample. Our third sample we are going to test is blue text on a light green background. Click on the dropper, get the brightest pixel, and click on the background color dropper and get that light green. Here we see that this fails for regular text as well as large text under AA standard. And finally, we want to test this black text on a gradient blue background. When you are dealing with gradients or any backgrounds that have multiple colors in them, you have to test multiple areas. First, we will click on our dropper to get that black text. And now we will use our background dropper and first get this lighter color, blue, and we see that it does pass minimum AA standards for regular and large text. However, when we use that dropper on this dark blue strip that goes through the middle of the text, we will see that it fails for both regular and large text AA standards. If you are using any sort of gradient, you have to ensure that the background passes on all parts of the text. We would not be able to use this even though it passes in this corner because it is not passing in that dark center area. Other contrast considerations. Company or department logos are exempt, but images of text must meet the minimum contrast requirement. Colors of line charts, pie charts, and bar graphs must meet the large print requirement 3.0 to 1 when compared with the background color. Color alone. Color can be a very powerful and effective tool for highlighting differences for a great number of people. However, over 4% of the world's population has a type of color blindness or may have other disabilities which affect their capacity to differentiate colors. When using color to convey meaning, it is required to include an additional visual element. This may be a number, braces, brackets, or a specific symbol. A key must be provided if a symbol or braces or brackets are used. Here are a few examples of color alone accessibility violations. In this pie chart, we have 4 different segments, each its own color. We have a blue section for first quarter, orange for second quarter, gray for third, and green for fourth quarter. To show this in another way, we can use some sort of a pattern instead of solid colors. Therefore, if you cannot differentiate between the colors, you have vertical lines, polka dots, horizontal lines, and one solid fill. In this example, our negative numbers are red in color alone to convey information. To remediate that, we can use a simple negative sign in front of each of those red numbers. And for our final example, we have a section of a text equivalent from an org chart. We have a key that says our budgeted positions are black font, our vacant budgeted are red, our blanket are brown, and our vacant blanket are purple font. Again, that is color alone to convey information. To remediate that, we have added symbols as well as some different font styles. So now we have italicized with an exclamation point, brown with an asterisk, purple italicized with a tilde, and blue with double asterisk. So these are all different ways that you can convey information in addition to using color. The accessibility checker cannot check for these errors. A manual check of the document is necessary to ensure color is not being used alone to convey meaning. For more information about this topic or any of the topics in our series, contact the Accessibility and Policy Unit at accessibilitypolicyunit@dss.ca.gov.